Peter. All right. Hi, everyone. So what I wanted to discuss today for this like mini workshop, I couldn't find more than 30 minutes. I suspect like we won't cover a lot in 30 minutes. Um, but what I wanted to talk about is sort of the bigger picture of what we're trying to deliver. And sort of zoom in on 18.4 and 5 and the pieces that we want to target for 18.4 and 5. Okay. Um, I don't know whether we need to go through like the lingo discussion of agents and flows. I think everyone's clear about what prompts are, what tools are, what agents are, what flows are. So I'm not going to sort of go into that. I presume everyone understands that. Okay. So I sort of try to draw this up so that people understand how we're going to use this stuff across the different products. And I probably missed a bunch of things here, but I was just drawing this before, trying to visualize what we're talking about. So we've got the catalog, which is pretty much the center of what we're trying to work on here, is where customers get to store their definitions. It's where we get to store our definitions, etc. And so there are like four entities stored in the catalog. So there's prompts, tools, agents, and flows. The catalog may not be structured this way today, but basically that's I think eventually where we want to go get to is have all these different things. As I understand it today, we're just storing agents. Is that correct? So agents and tools perhaps, and that's
We've got
probably the
agents, flows, and tools are available to agents, but they're not quite in the catalog. It's a slightly different concept, but we've got the built-in tools specifically at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So, so let's talk about the okay. So tools, we don't need to worry about that too much. But basically, the two kinds of tools that we want to target, the MCP tools, which are both external and internal MCP tools, as well as the built-in tools. We want to be able to store that in the catalog in some way or the other. But let's not focus on that for this discussion. Not so important, or probably will be important eventually. But whatever. I'm going to gloss over it. So here basically what we want to store is flows, and we want to store three kinds of flows. So one is custom flows, the YAML format the Mikula and team have come up with. So we want to be able to store that in the catalog. We want to be able to store built-in flows, the software development one, but there may be a few more of those built-in flows that we want to be able to store in the catalog. And then finally, we want to store third-party flows as well. This is like having Claude or Codex or a combination of Claude and Codex or whatever else the customers can dream up, basically stored in the catalog as well, right? And so we want to be able to have these three different um, kinds of things being stored as flows in the catalog. And then finally, this is where, like, this is how customers actually use it. So they could use it in DoWorks from the IDE. So they could go to the IDE and say, I want to start this flow, which will basically choose one of the flows from the catalog and execute that. So that's option one for customers. Option two is that they can trigger this. So they can set up a trigger on an at mention assignment or pipeline failure. This is what we delivered for third-party agents, but we're going to extend that for all flows. And so the idea is that you select a flow from the catalog, and then that basically triggers it off. And then finally, we've got agent sessions. That's again, just starting an agent session from the UI. That's like if you go the UI to automate an agent session, and you say new session, you want to select a flow here potentially, right, from the catalog. Um, and then you've got agentic chat. Now, agentic chat and agentic chat in the UI are a bit different. So agentic chat, we don't want to select flows, but we want to select agents. So when the user selects that they want to chat with something, they will construct an agent in the IDE, in the catalog, and they will then say, okay, I want to chat to this specific agent, maybe the security agent, which has security tools, and then they can have that conversation with that agent, right? And then the same for agentic chat in the UI. Again, we want to be able to select agents there, not flows. Okay. And then in terms of the execution environment, we've got different execution environments. So we got for the workflow and IDE, we're doing local execution. This is on the user's own machine. For the triggers and agent sessions, we use CI as our execution environment. So we trigger off workloads. For agentic chat in the IDE, again, we use a local execution environment in the IDE. agentic chat in the UI is interesting. We like mimic a local execution environment by using the API. So chat thinks it's like doing local execution, but it's really an API based execution that we do in the UI. So that's basically the structure of what how this all sort of falls in. There's the catalog, there's the various teams that are consuming this, and there's the runtimes that we spoke about here. And sort of core to all this is all these definitions that we need to figure out. And then just getting very detailed into sort of the requirements for 18.4 and 18.5. So the first requirement, and these are requirements I'm tracking. I'm sure there are many, many more requirements that you guys have that I'm not aware of. But basically, for 18.4, 18.5, there's a need to store GitLab flows and third-party flows in the catalog. Um, okay, let me in catalog. And so that's basically an 18.4 requirement. There's a 18.4 requirements for the chat team to be able to select an agent when starting a chat. So in the IDE, they should be able to say, I want to chat with my security agent, and they pick from the catalog the security agent and say start chat. And then finally, there's the ability to select flows and triggers. And basically that's saying, oh, I want to create an art mention trigger. I want to use basically a flow from the catalog there. And so that is an 18.5 requirement that I'm also tracking. And if you're not aware of triggers, if you haven't seen them, I know most of you have because most of you build this. So this is actually a beautiful page built by Vanessa. And so in the event types, we got mention at the moment, and we're going to add some more in 18.5. And basically, instead of the configuration path, which is basically just a CI job, we want to be able to select from the catalog here. So we want to be able to say, pick something from the catalog, and we show a beautiful catalog screen where they go and pick a flow to execute when the trigger is executed. Okay, so that's kind of the full picture. Any questions on this?
I think my biggest question, so we've got in here being able to store GitLab flows and third-party flows in the catalog. Where do we get them from? Um,
Customers will create those definitions. So those are third-party flows and built-in flows. So built-in
yeah,
flows are fixed. Kind of we need to ship with those somehow. So we need to like pre-seed those built-in flows into the catalog table whenever we ship it to customers.
yeah.
For third-party flows, we need to uh, for third-party flows, there are definitions that customers will create. The customers will provide a definition, and we need to give them the ability to upload that definition in the UI somewhere. Okay, and that's why I
Mhm.
was I was thinking, since we are going there, is that we would have like, in the YAML definition type of thing, we'll have like three types of YAMLs. So one will be the DO flow, which we know and love, and which we have the components for. But I suggest that we create like this type subtype kind of thing in the YAML definition, where we have a subtype saying, this is a DO flow. We could have a separate subtype saying this is a third party flow with a different set of things that need to be configured for third party flows. And then we have built-in flows, which is again with subtype built in, and then we have a separate definition here. But again, it doesn't matter. Like this could be like a field in the table or something like that. It doesn't really matter, but I think we need to have that subtype um, delineation somewhere.
Why we need a type? Could you get back to that?
Oh, so I was thinking type would be flow agent prompt tool. Like those would be the types. The subtypes would be like going into a bit more detail there.
But I believe that I may be wrong, but it seems to me because those things have very distinct identity, they will just start completely differently from each other. So I'm not sure if
Fair.
we need to kind of squish them together
Yeah, yeah,
and then
yeah.
have like very, very mixed, like very confusing syntax that like fits all sizes, and the sizes are like from whale to eagle, and all shapes in between.
Yeah, I mean, fair point. Fair point. I mean, we could remove this and we could say, hey, these are just different YAML definitions. Like, this one looks like this and this one looks like this. That's fine. Um, but basically, somewhere in the catalog, we should introduce a type saying, hey, this is built in, this is first party, or Duo, and this is third party, right? And so then we could
So
have like different.
my expectation on this would be when we get to a point that you can select the provider and model, that would kind of be what derives this kind of type. Does that sound realistic?
So you mean users will be able to select their own provider and model for a particular flow?
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, that's what you mean by a third-party flow, right? One that's using Claude Code or Codex or OpenAI or something like that. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, exactly. Those are third party flows. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. And so
So
they can choose when they are defining what that third party agent needs to look like. Like in fact for Claude Code, this is what it would look like, where they would specify what they do in the CI configuration today, that is image commands and variables. And so it would remain the same basically as what they're doing today.
yeah, so my expectation would be that the way we determine whether it's it kind of doesn't matter, right? It's basically what's the provider, what's the LLM, and what's the model, and by them choosing that will
Mhm.
determine how we're executing this, I guess. Although I'm assuming it's all going via the Duo agent platform. I have no idea. I don't know if you have any idea how on earth we're gonna, because at the moment we're using these CLIs in CI. How are we going to communicate with these third party LLMs from Duo agent platform, Duo workflow service?
So the plan is not actually to do that. So we are working on a new set of requirements as well, which I've not stated here because I think it's kind of unrelated. But customers want the ability to use Claude. Like they don't want to use the Duo UI at all. They want to use Claude, but use GitLab credentials to use Claude, right? And so we're not saying that you're going to be able to chat with these third-party agents. We're going to say that you could use the Claude CLI and GitLab will manage the credentials for you. So that's like a separate twist to this kind of tale is that in the IDE or in these environments, we're not going to support third-party agents. So
Yeah.
in
So
in
with that, I just want to, sorry for cutting in, but I think it would be also cool to split this on the flow definition. Like if they're fully separate, let's keep them separate because it will be confusing both for us and for customers. And as Lee pointed out, marrying those two things together and being able to trigger, like communicate between the cloud, the cloud code and I don't know, our security agent that runs in the AI gateway. Like I'm not saying it's fully impossible, but it's definitely a long stretch, and we haven't even had a slight idea how to do that. So keeping them separate for now probably would be the best
yeah,
idea.
yeah.
And if we want to bridge them together, then we will discuss like from basically scratch, okay, this is the one, this is the other, how we combine them together instead of pretending that they are the same thing while they're fully separated.
Yeah, yeah, agreed.
So
Agreed.
this kind of comes back to this draft of the YAMLs that you showed us that I would
Yeah.
use very different schema like the environment, the type, the version, all these things. Like I'll just get them out of here because they are very intrinsic, very like they're tightly coupled with the
Coupled.
idea of the flow registry, and like
Okay.
keep them separate. Like spec and image and commands is fine. Like I don't care if it's separate entity. Their internal syntax is fine, but let's take away the things that belong to the flow registry.
Okay, makes sense. So you're saying that that doesn't change the YAML. So the YAML would be exactly as it is today. The only difference is that somewhere on the flow object here in the registry, here we would have a field called type, which is either third party or Dio or built-in, right?
Yeah, it could be something like Lee mentioned, like kind of provider. Maybe provider is not the best word because provider
No,
is very
yeah,
tightly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the idea that the provider, in a sense, if
Kind?
it's
I don't know.
like we can ask AI to find the right name.
Find a good word. Find a good word for this. But
Yeah, but
whatever it is,
the idea, so the flow could be just the very umbrella, and there could be just this relation. If we are discussing the database, like it could be relation that it belongs, the flow belongs to, let's say, provider, for lack of a better word, and provider could be GitLab, provider could be Anthropic,
yeah.
and it will provide the whole flow, like the agents, the cloud code, or the security and whatnot. Yeah.
So to
Okay.
clarify, are we saying that we're going to continue to execute third-party, whatever you want to call them, agents
Yeah.
flows via
Yeah.
CI?
Yeah. Exactly. So the requirement right now is that here this will only be Duo. Sorry. Like yeah, specifically this is only Duo and built-in.
Just quickly, sorry, Shikar, what's the difference between duo and built-in? Like, are they not the
But
same thing?
oh, okay. So let me bad word. So custom and built-in. So custom like the
Right. Okay.
YAML
Yeah, yeah,
format.
I'm with you.
Yeah, yeah. And here we've got agent sessions are all. This is also agents also only custom and built-in. There's one built-in agent. So yeah, I suppose.
This is like a, I don't know if you want to go down that road as well, but I believe that there is this, I also have a link here, that there is this confusion going in the terminology, like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is agent, what is flow, and especially if it comes to, it boils down to like this triggering via mentions, they mention the persona, not the flow. And it behaves like an agent, but it's like
Yeah.
three agents under the hood.
Hey, to make it worse, like we've got like I was just seeing this automate. So you call them agent sessions, right? We call them agent sessions, but we
Yeah.
actually triggering a flow, right? I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
so it's the confusion is everywhere.
So like
Um,
what I'm trying to promote is like we kind of try to put the boundary between the product language, like we could call them agent session, that could be just
yeah,
wild magic,
yeah,
whatever we like to call them. But on the like the engineering side of things, everything is a flow because agents lives within the flow, and the single agent is one agent flow. And probably we shouldn't really diverge and have, oh, we run flows and then agents. No, we always run the flows, but flows can be built from 0 to infinity of agents. And those one that you chat with are this very specific type of one agent flows. And already the flow registry or the YAML has this environment definition that would help to drive this, because we have this differentiation between flows that can run in background and the ones that you can talk to. So like the foreground, the chat UI, we are still looking for a good name, how to name the environment. But there is this distinction, and probably the distinction that you're showing here in the diagram between the flows and the agents would be flows with the environment remote, that is the flows on the diagram right now, and the flows with environment chat are those the agents. But I would
but
keep them as a flows everywhere, because otherwise we're gonna be so confused everywhere that no one will know
I
what's
see what
going on.
you. I see what you mean, but the thing is that we have created an agent entity in the catalog, right? So we have an agent entity in the catalog as well, Nikolai. That's what confuses me. So you're saying that hey, in GitLab, you're thinking that there's only one thing called flow, and then an agent is just where the flow has just one element,
Yeah. So
right?
this is also what I was trying to convey, that we should separate what we are like, what terminology we are using behind the scenes in engineering, and
Hmm.
what is the product, the UX terminology, because I think that's also like there's a lot of complexity hidden, and what is called agents as a product, like the research agent, the codex agents.
They're actually
If
flows.
you There are
Yeah,
actually multiple agents, multi-agent systems, but no one really tells you like, hey, this multi-agent system that acts as developer. Everyone
yeah,
tells this is the developer agent, and it's
exactly.
like it's domain-wise. It's not only us. So from the user perspective, they will trigger the agent and they will talk to the agent, or I try to use the word agent persona, that is alias for a flow. Like they're talking to agent persona, and this agent persona is a flow, and this flow can be built from one to infinity of agents. Does this make sense?
It does, but I am concerned about what the chat team is. So they, when we want to trigger off agentic chat from the IDE, we want to be able to select a persona, right?
Yes.
And so they want to say, hey, this is a security agent,
Yes.
and they want that to be coming from the catalog. So my
Yes.
question is, from the catalog, will that come from a flow
Yes. It will be
or
always
from
a
a,
flow.
but the
Like
catalog has an agent object. That's what confuses me. That's what I'm trying to say.
so, like we can create the syntax sugar, so to say. So like there will be these agents because the agents are entity that live within a flow, and some of
Hmm.
them could be even like some only some of those would be exposable, like or be available for this foreground chat UIs. It matter. It differs on the tools and the integrations they have. Like you don't want to have the agent that can pause at any time to run in the background because probably it will stop in the very weird moment and you will have like this very annoying back and forth clicking through the UI. But you also probably want more control agent in your chat that talks
Hmm.
back to you and allows you this iterative interaction as we have with the agentic chat. That's why we have the differentiation. That's why we have this environment, and each of the components in the flow registry also declares if you can use it in both scenarios or only one.
So I was thinking, what if we split this and flows and agents have nothing to do with each other, right? And we only have, so this is for chat only, right? Where we have the sort of definition of these agents. And this is for like, everything else.
But so like I said, from the user perspective, fine. Like we could have this split, and users
Yeah,
don't need to be
exactly.
aware, at least as long as they won't do not I stay as long as they will not build the agents and flows, the custom flows on their own. That's the moment where they're crossing the boundary, they're crossing the like the boundary, and they need to understand some level of complexity because it's like there's no way this complexity needs to exist somewhere. Uh, but from the even the flow builder, so user, the flow builder, everything that they run is nested within the flow. Like agents lives within the flow. And if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want
yeah.
to talk to the agent, like if you want to have this one chat-like loop, that would be flow that is consisted probably of two components, agent component and human input component,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
plus some prompts. So you could have this template, like this agent persona template. You get the agent component, you get the human input component, and what you do is, okay, now I will customize the prompts, I will customize the tools. So this agent acts in a certain role. So it acts as the security agent, it acts
Mhm.
as the technical writer. If you're gonna have the multimodal models, it acts as the, I don't know, UX designer. But in the end, under the hood, those would be flows, probably out of two components, as I said. Um, and I think that we shouldn't really like try to separate it because in the end, under the hood, everything would be everything is a flow. Like you cannot run agent on its own because agent is just a like set of or like the component. You can run it on its own because it's just a set of line graph nodes that are not connected to anything, and you need to connect it to something, which is a flow.
Just to give you from the sort of monolith and the Rails and the catalog point of view, from an engineering point, what we've done is very much along those lines as well. So agents exist as an entity, but they have to be in a flow. We've just created the ability to kind of execute an agent, like to test it. But what we do in the monolith, the Rails, we basically wrap that temporarily in a flow. We create a one agent flow with that agent and
I
send
see.
that across. The
Okay.
other thing that's quite important at the moment, although we can certainly have conversations about pivoting, but the idea is you create your agent, you then create your flow using one or more agents. You then add the flow to one or more projects or groups. So you wouldn't be able to use a flow or an agent. We don't intend to be able to use agents, but let's say we did. You wouldn't be able to use a flow or an agent from a project or group from the get-go. As soon as it's published in the catalog, somebody would need to actually enable that flow or agent if we decided to do that. But at the moment, it's a flow. So yeah, we've very much got this agent forms a flow gets added to a project or group, and then we need to start talking about triggers, which is kind of what was delivered for the third party
Okay.
CLI stuff.
So what we're really going to be doing here is we're going to be selecting flows in this case as well. That's what you're saying,
Yeah.
instead of agents, right? We're going to be selecting flows, but those flows are going to be one agent flows in some way or the other.
So the only thing I've got in my head that's a little bit confusing here is like definitely flows if we're executing them via the traditional mechanism, if that makes sense. But I have no idea technically. I don't know if we've already solved this, but how we'll be handling chat with a flow. Is that already been discussed, solved? Do we know how that's going to work? Or
Yeah, so one of these chats with the flow. So that's what I said. So for the chat, you can only select one agent flows, right? And what we will do for chat for now, we could like in our end state, we could probably just run the flow and that would be it. Like it'd be just like a flow is just a chat is just a one agent flow basically. But for now, because the chat, the infrastructure that we have built for chat is a bit different, we'll just steal like the prompt and the tools from the first agent we see in the flow and use that for chat basically, is what I'm thinking.
but
So
from a
But
technical, forgive me because I'm not as close to the details. Maybe this is something Nikolai you can answer. But for like chat, is that just like a different? So for executing a flow, we're going to be using the same sort of CI, the Duo workflow executor to create a CI job, which is going to communicate using the gRPC API. But I don't know, forgive me, I don't know how chat interacts with the Duo workflow service, and
It
therefore, go on.
it does the exact same thing as a regular Duo workflow, but the only difference is that we have a very custom built flow for chat. It's optimized really for speed. Like the primary reason we built it that way is because we needed to like cut every thing for speed in chat, and that's how we got this very custom flow for chat at the moment.
But presume we don't use the Duo workflow executor to spin up
No,
a CI.
yeah, we use the executor. It's just built into the IDE, but we use the same executor, same gRPC connection. Everything's the same for chat.
So
Oh,
let me like chat. So that's fully correct. What Shikar says, and I want to like build on top of that because I think that's a good way about how to trigger those chat flows. Wouldn't be trying to squeeze back those flows into the graph in the that was built for the agentic chat, but rather continue the same road that we are already developing because we could also already piggyback on a lot of things that we are building for the catalog. It will be only a matter of selecting or like limiting the flows that one can select in the chat.
Exactly.
And we already have this idea from the D0. It is built into the flow registry. So like if you will take a look at I will find the right issue about that. But if you take a look at this YAML draft as you had, Shikar, if you can take a look at that, there is this environment. This is what defines and controls whether the flow can be run in the background or whether it can be run in the chat UI. So based on that, it will also verify and validate that the components are enabled. And then you could have one or even more if that particular scenario makes sense in the chat. I'm not saying I have any particular use case in mind, but it wouldn't be limiting that we will count literally the agents, but rather you declare and you can only use limited set of components that match the chat UI requirements. And we already working with Lee and with Nathan on ability to pass in the flow config from Rails that you want run in the start workflow request. So literally what probably will be required to trigger this or select those flows is to build in some selector in the extension
Mhm.
that would pull the flow config with
That's
those
exactly
agents
that's
that
exactly what we want to do. So we'll
they would.
call the GraphQL API that these guys are building to pull in the flow config and then pass that flow config ID or something into the
So
start
we're
workflow.
passing the row
Oh, the
row.
YAML.
Yeah, we're passing the complete YAML because it
Yeah,
will
yeah,
also be required for the customized. So if we won't
yeah.
have everything, so we pass the um
The
the
full
complete
YAML.
object,
Hmm.
and then we build it on the backend. So you don't really need to try to then decompose it, reverse engineer, and try to like push it back to the existing infrastructure, but rather just capitalize on what is built.
Hmm.
And I don't think that there will be much more overhead, like the significant overhead from what you had right now in the agentic chat.
Okay. Okay. I mean the okay. I mean I think that should be fine. Like if you can do it that way, that'll be fine. I just need to check on whether the other stuff we're doing in agentic chat, which we may not capture here, so that's a bit confusing to me, but I'll figure that out. But it makes sense. What you're saying is just grab the YAML, pass it in start workflow request, and that should be it,
Yeah,
right?
I will grab a bunch of issues
Yeah.
as we go, like the ones that with Lee and as I said with Nathan we already working on to pass and run those configs, which are like in the flight, in the making. So it should be quite soon that they land because it's really important.
Hmm.
And literally from that point to get it into the IDs and node executor would be only IDs and node executors changes, and everything else would be just ready and waiting. So this is the one of the issues. And another is uh,
Is that
another is
18.4 as well? I presume that's 18.4, right?
yeah, it was even 18.3, but we missed the target.
Okay.
So it definitely will be 18.4. Like it
Hmm.
probably should land in a matter of like next week,
Okay.
at least big chunk of it.
Makes sense. Okay. So in terms of the requirements, just coming back to that, so select agent and starting chat looks like we're just starting a flow. We decided that, and I'll speak to the chat team about that and speak to Tim as well. Store GitLab flows and third-party flows. Are you guys fine for that? Like we just want to stick a YAML in the catalog somehow, saying this is a third-party flow and denote that as a third-party flow. Is that
So we're not using YAML, we're using sort of first class UI.
yeah?
And it's pretty rudimentary at the moment. You can select tools, you've got a system prompt and a user prompt. I think we're sort of starting to spike on how we can interpolate into that to get context of like issue, merge request, etc. But
That's fine
yeah,
for the Duo. That's fine for the Duo set, but for the third party set, I think for now it'll be better if we just let them. So when they are saying create a new flow, when they select like or Duo flow or third party flow, so when they select Duo flow, you show them your fancy UI, which has all the bells and whistles and system prompts and providers and whatever else. When they select third party flows, you just show them a little place where you can stick the YAML in for now, before we go into some more complex third party flows.
yeah. So this is less about what we were building and more about what Igor and what we built and this kind of 18.3 third party stuff and kind of finding a way to move that into the catalog, right?
Exactly, exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
so obviously I'll try not to say too much because I guess it's more down to Sam to understand sort of how we
Mm.
can find capacity, if we can find capacity to um, pivot and be able to add these kind of third party flows in a different way to how we're adding the
Exactly.
first party flows.
Yeah, what I'll say is yes, it's absolutely possible. It's even doable in 18.4, but this isn't the only thing that we're being asked to do by 18.4, so we might need to
Exactly. I knew that.
sort some other expectation. I know you do. I just want to be clear on that, right? Like, it's not a problem as such. It's just
Mhm.
working out, okay, what's higher priority to land in 18.4 specifically. And bear in
Mhm.
mind, this isn't actually going out to the public by 18.4 anyway. So
Yeah, yeah.
whatever we add in 18.4, no one's going to see this anyway, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I think so. Can you scroll across to the far left side, Shikar, where it's got everything? This, I'm trying to point with my finger. You can't see my finger. I've been doing this for years. I still point with my finger. So custom flows, this is what we're building in the UI. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely 18.4, right? That is going to make it to 18.4.
Yes.
Okay.
Built-in flows. So these are the ones that run in. So this is things like the software development flow, the
Research
issue to
agent.
MR, all of that
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. However, assuming we want to keep this list up to date, like, are we saying we're not storing them in workflow service anymore? We're pulling them out of there and storing them in the catalog, or do we have some kind of connection that will pull anything that's stored in workflow service and keep that in sync? Do you know what I mean? Like that. This is what I'm saying about where does that come from?
Let me pause you there. Then we don't have to deliver this for 18.4. If we don't have not already figured this out, then let's not do it for 18.4, which
Oh.
is fine. Yeah.
Fair.
But
I would still want to know roughly the answer to
it's
that, though, if anyone knows. Like, is this?
it's in Sarah's list though. It's in Sarah's list. So someone needs to say it's not in 18.4, but yeah. I think I mean the way we would like to do it, Nikolai, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we would want either the Duo Workflow service to push this list to the catalog, or we want the catalog to pull this from the Duo Workflow service. But in either case, the Duo Workflow service for the built-in flow should be
Mhm.
the source of truth, right?
So from what you're saying, I would say that the AI gateway is the source, and the catalog always use the source. Like we either
Yeah.
push or pull, but the source
Yeah,
is
yeah,
in
yeah,
AI
yeah.
gateway, and we
Exactly.
kind of the by delivering the AI gateway to the self-managed as well, we deliver the flows. Because we need to deliver and we can ship
Yeah,
the GitLab database, the
exactly.
.com database.
Yeah.
So we will ship the AI gateway, which has this flows as a code that can be pulled. I may be missing something. I think we talked about it a couple times, but I don't think we have a good issue about that. But though there's tons of issue flying everywhere, so I may be unaware simply. But we could also create one just to discuss. Okay, what would be the
Yeah.
details?
Okay. Well, then we will need some way of getting them flows from workflow service, right? That's like, I'm going to say
Yeah.
API and be very hand wavy there. I don't know
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah.
what
yeah,
it
yeah,
looks
yeah.
like, right?
Exactly.
Like something.
Yeah, we,
Um,
we went round in circles a few times on that because we were sort of looking initially at pulling them from workflow service, and then we said, well, why don't we just make the monolith the source of truth? And then at some point we also talked about, well, maybe people push flows into the Duo workflow service to kind of test them and get them started, and then once they're kind of more concrete, they then promote them to Rails. But I think there's more conversations to be had to figure out the
yeah.
exact sort of
Plus
end
the
game.
idea of building something like I forget what we call it now, the software developer one, the one that was previously just called workflow, right? Like
Yeah.
the idea of building that in the editor that we're building is terrifying. There's too many complicated things in there. I don't think we'd be able to, right? So
Yeah,
having a way
exactly.
to say, please just go trigger this thing that's written in Python, um,
Yeah.
would be
Exactly.
beneficial, right? And then third party flows, we already talked about that a little, right? Like this would probably have to just be some kind of JSON, sorry,
Yeah,
YAML that we
YAML.
store.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All doable. Just need to figure out.
Yeah.
So
So do let
there's
me know. Do let me know, like whether it'll be 18.4 or 18.5. I'll just get back to Sarah on that.
yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, irrespective of that, I think we'll deliver the triggers in 18.5, it looks like. Um,
Yes. Is that something, are we blocking you on that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the ability to, well, the blocker here is we want to be able to query the flow object to fetch the list of flows, which I think we can do today, I suppose, right?
You can,
That
there just
should,
probably won't be any there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But like from the REST API or something, I'm guessing we can, GraphQL API, we can create a flow and test this out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
yeah. There's something I wanted to there's a few things to do with triggers that I've struck through on the agenda, but one of the things that I did want to mention is our paradigm, whatever you want to call it, schema was suggesting that flows would be configured. Triggers would be attached directly to flows, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then potentially when you enable a flow on a project or a group, you might be able to customize that. Now, obviously, since we've built the third-party CLI agent stuff, we've seen that a flow trigger is like a standalone concept.
Mm-hmm.
I still would like to have this conversation somewhere at some point around whether these things should be
Together.
separate, combined. Yeah, do you know
Yeah.
what? Like, for example, if I am a third party developer, no, that's a really bad term of choice. I'm a community member and I want to create a flow for triaging issues. I create my agent or agents I need. I create my flow, and I would in there say, well, this flow probably wants to be triggered when a merge request is created or updated, and I kind of configure it there. And then somebody says, right, I want to use this flow, and they enable it in the project.
Mm-hmm.
Do they need to create a trigger then after that, or do they automatically get a trigger? Can they override that trigger? Those conversations I would like to have at some point somewhere.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I don't think we've reached there yet and to figure out how we sort of combine the two together. But it makes sense. You're saying that, hey, the trigger, the flow, all of it is actually a thing together, right?
That's
Uh,
that's what we were thinking, and like in my head, like now we've gone down this slightly different route. Some of it sort of seems like, yeah, that's a good idea. It doesn't make sense to trigger like an MR review bot from like an app mention on an issue, for example, or via a cron, or other ideas that I've got for triggering. But in another extent, actually being able to customize it does make a lot of sense. So I think there's value in both, but I'm just conscious of us going too far in any one direction without making sure we have the conversation first.
Yeah,
yeah,
I think.
so
Sorry, Chika. The way I saw it with triggers initially was when we have this node-based flow editor where you can have three different triggers that then all trigger this entry point and then go do all of these things. I think that works really well. I think with the way that we've got the very simplified flow editor that we're building now, has to be very simplified because we have to build on a very short time scale. Like that paradigm makes less sense, and the way that we're building triggers now makes more. So you can have multiple triggers for the same flow. Like that would look super weird if we put that in the UI that we have for flows now. But equally, I don't want to rule out getting there eventually when we have a better
Yeah.
flow editor. Just, I guess, bear in mind while we're making this, let's not put us down a path where we can't migrate to doing that other one later down the line without I don't know, whatever it is we're asking customers to do. Like, hey, you used to configure them here, now you configure them here. These two things don't talk to each other. Figure it out, right?
yeah.
Like, that's obviously what we want to avoid. But I don't think we'll realistically be able to build triggers into the catalog by November directly, right? But I think we have to lean on what we've done for third-party agents.
I think so too, but I think what Lee's talking about makes perfect sense. Like at some point in time, we need to figure out how to combine it, how to migrate customers. Unfortunately, like we're always against time, and so we need to figure out what works for today. But yeah, Lee, what you're saying it makes perfect sense. Like some point in time, we should be able to just drag and drop a trigger into like the palette or whatever, and say, oh, this triggers this flow or whatever. And so yeah, that makes sense. Um, and all SaaS companies go through this, by the way. Like in Salesforce, when I was at Salesforce, we had the same thing. We had this thing called workflow, which is very simple, like the UI like we have today, which you just trigger off something. And then later we came up with this WYSIWYG kind of flow editor where you could have all sorts of different triggers. So it's kind of like deja vu for me here. But yeah, it's rebuild later if needed, actually. Okay. All right. I have taken a lot of your time, so thank you for that. I just wanted to get those requirements out there, also paint the picture so that we all are on the same page. I learned a few things here, so thank you so much. That's it.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.